Okay. Hold on. We get to the stream. Get to the stream. Dang, man, I got 23 more days till I'm out of Facebook jail and I can shut a show. So I know there ain't gonna be no people in here today since I can't share the shit. Okay, yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, peace, everybody. I will be hosting today, but before we get the show started, I'm gonna play the video or the commercial for Volume 2, and I'm gonna let the brothers introduce themselves. But yeah, y'all make sure y'all get Volume 2 from Spears to Pens. If y'all ain't got it, make sure you also get Volume 1, Spears of the Mossy. That book has been doing major things. We in Senegambia.
Doing major things and all across seas.
I'm telling you, man.
You dig?
Spears is flying.
Pseudos is crying.
Okay, let me play this. Yeah, man. Peace, everybody. I'm gonna let the brothers introduce themselves before I get into it. It's your brother Sutek, and I will be doing a presentation today about COVID tips, and it's basically COVID tips for your health and protection. I'll be giving a couple of informational tips about that, dispelling a couple of myths about it. And as soon as the brothers introduce themselves, we'll get right into it. So, yeah, I want to.
Peace. That's your brother. I'm on here to catch some of these tips from my brother Sutek about this COVID stuff. We still are under a pandemic, so we still need to. We don't want to lighten up. We want to tighten up. So, yeah, I'm here for the game.
Yeah, man.
Peace to everybody. Yeah, pretty much what Brother Satep just said. I go hard over this COVID stuff. Being an asthmatic myself, having an underlying condition. yeah, I'm strong and able bodied, but you know, Mother Nature as a whole, she can weigh you down no matter how strong you is. So um, let's see what our brother Sute got for us.
Yeah, man. Yep. That COVID is a killer. Literally, it's knocking people off. So hopefully, I can bring y'all something that might help. Something you can introduce to your families to make sure they got the right information, make sure they're taking care of themselves, make sure their health is on point, and etc. So my presentation is called "Going Viral." It's a play on words. It's tips for COVID-19 care and protection. Let's get into it. All right, what is the novel coronavirus? A novel coronavirus is a new coronavirus that has not been previously identified. The virus causing coronavirus disease, which is COVID-19, is the same as the coronavirus that commonly circulate among humans and causes mild illness like the common cold. So these symptoms this disease cause symptoms similar to those of the common cold. So if you feel yourself coming up with those symptoms that usually you get from the common cold, you might need to get yourself checked out, get that test. Why is the disease being called coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19? So why is the coronavirus disease being called COVID-19? On February 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization, otherwise known as WHO, announced an official name for the disease that is causing the 2019 novel coronavirus outbreak, first identified in Wuhan, China. The new name of this disease is coronavirus disease 2019, abbreviated as COVID-19. So that's why the differences of names. One is a virus that causes a disease. In COVID-19, the CO, stands for corona. The VI stands for virus. The D stands for disease. Formerly, the disease was referred to as 2019 novel coronavirus or 2019 nCoV. There are many types of human coronaviruses, including some that commonly cause mild upper respiratory tract illnesses. COVID-19 is a new disease caused by a novel or new, which is what the word novel means, coronavirus that has not previously been seen in humans. So this is something new. This is why they're using the word novel. How does the coronavirus spread? How are we dealing with the transmission, right? The virus causes the virus that causes COVID-19 is thought to spread mainly from person to person, mainly through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. These droplets can land in the mouth or noses of people who are nearby or possibly be inhaled into the lungs. Spread is more likely when people are in close contact with one another within 6 feet. So this is the reason why the CDC asks that you physical distance from each other, right? Because it's more likely to spread when you're within 6 feet. And that's another reason for that too. And we'll get into that later. COVID-19 seems to be spreading easily and sustainably in the community, which is called community spread in many affected geographical areas. Community spread means people have been infected with the virus in an area, including some who are not sure how or where they became infected. All right. Do face masks help slow the transmission? It's a touchy subject. I know a lot of people, you see a lot of videos, you see a lot of memes, you see a lot of Facebook posts about people, mostly people who don't know what they're talking about. They have no idea. They did no research into the matter. They will tell you, that face masks do not work. Most of the time, they will tell you that face masks do not help you prevent, does not help the prevention of the transmission, one way or the other. So let's see what the CDC says. In an editorial published today in the Journal of American Medical Association, or JAMA, JAMA, CDC reviewed the latest science and affirms that cloth face coverings are a critical tool in the fight against COVID-19 that could reduce the spread of the disease, particularly when used universally within communities. So the CDC is saying that uh, cloth face coverings are a critical tool in the fight against COVID-19, and they could help reduce the spread of the disease, particularly when used universally within communities. So that means, first of all, it's telling you it can help reduce the spread greatly. It is a critical tool in helping to prevent the spread. Not, excuse me, oh, that's too loud. Not from helping you to get it, but to help prevent the spread, right? So I think it's a lot of misconceptions about that. What masks do, you're not wearing the mask to prevent you from getting it. You're wearing the mask to prevent others from getting whatever you may have, right? So let's keep going. There is increasing evidence that face cloth coverings help prevent people who have COVID-19 from spreading the virus to others. That's exactly what I just said. We are not defenseless against COVID-19, says CDC Director Robert Redfield. Cloth face coverings are one of the most powerful weapons we have to slow and stop the spread of the virus, particularly when used universally within a community setting. All Americans have a responsibility to protect themselves, their families, and their communities. So, within wearing a face mask, even though it might not be used to prevent you from being infected, it prevents others from any infection that you may have. So this is why we have to follow this rule as a community. Everybody in your community has to be wearing a mask for this thing to actually work. You know what I mean? You want to prevent other people from anything you may have, and these other people want to prevent giving you anything they may have. It's just a matter of being concerned for your fellow neighbor. All right, so let's keep going. During the early 20th century, various types of cloth masks made of cotton, gauze, and other fabrics were used in U.S. hospitals. Rates of respiratory infections among healthcare workers who used masks made of 2 to 3 layers of gauze were low. And that's just gauze. Cloth masks were also used to protect healthcare workers from diphtheria. No, I said that wrong, but and scarlet fever. During the 1918 Spanish influenza pandemic, masks made of various layers of cotton were widely used by healthcare workers and the general public. So this is not the first time that we had to wear masks to help with the spread of a pandemic, right? What was that? Gauze masks were made. Gauze masks were used during the second Mauritian plague epidemic in 1920 to 1921 and the plague epidemic in Los Angeles in 1924. So more incidents where face masks were used to help slow transmissions of illnesses. Infection rates among healthcare workers who wore masks were low. During the 1930s and 1940s, gauze and cloth masks were also used by healthcare workers to prevent or to protect themselves from tuberculosis. So, in the 30s and 40s, more masks helped with tuberculosis. In the middle of the 20th century, after the disposable mask had been developed, use of cloth masks decreased. So when they made the medical face mask, people slowed up on using the gauze mask. And this is in the middle of the 20th century. Cloth mask cloth mask use is still widespread in many countries in Asia. We still see this today. During the outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome in China, which is SARS, cotton masks were widely used by healthcare workers and the general public, and observational studies found them to be effective. So in Asia, in East Asia, they're already used to this. It's nothing new. It's us over here that have a problem with it. We don't want to be told by the government what to do, even if it's going to save our lives. Right? So let's get back into it. During a pandemic, cloth masks may be the only option available. However, they should be used as a last resort when medical masks and respirators are not available. Cloth masks should be used, cloth mask use should not be mandated for healthcare workers, but some may choose to use them if there are no alternatives. Protection is affected by proper mask use as well as by selection of fabric and design of the mask for water resistance, filtration, and fit. So these are important variables for picking your mask: the water resistance level, the filtration level, and the fit of the mask, which is very important. Um, Current evidence suggests that multi-layered masks with water-resistant fabric, high numbers of threads, and finer weave may be more protective. Several studies have examined filtration, but fewer have examined fit or water resistance. Surgical masks are normally rated for fluid resistance, and cloth masks should be too. Masks should be able to prevent a stream of fluid flowing at a pressure of up to 160 millimeters Hg from seeping through the mask and potentially into the mouth. So the surgical mask is meant to uh, have a certain level of water resistance or fluid resistance so that it will stop any aerosols or fluids in the air from penetrating through, right? Getting ahead of myself. What was that? Furthermore, the degree of fit affects effectiveness because air flows in the direction of least resistance. If gaps are present on the sides of the mass, air will flow through those gaps instead of through the mass. This is why fit of the mass is very important, because if the mass is not a good fit, Rather than going through the mask, the air will go through the sides or wherever those gaps may be present. Cloth masks can be made in large quantities in a short time. They can be reused after being decontaminated by various techniques, ideally washing in hot water with soap. Other methods or products include using bleach, uh, this type of alcohol, a hydrogen peroxide, autoclaving, or even microwaving, and application of ultraviolet radiation or dry heat. So these are all methods of decontaminating certain masks. Unlike disposable medical masks and respirators, the material of cloth masks is unlikely to degrade from standard decontamination procedures. However, hospitals will have the extra burden of cleaning and decontaminating used masks. If healthcare workers perform decontamination themselves, they may fail to wash masks frequently enough and may risk self contamination. Okay. The general public can use, cloth masks to protect against infection spread in the community. In community settings, masks may be used in two ways. First, they may be used by sick persons to prevent the spread of infection, which is a source control, and most health organizations, including WHO and CDC, recommend such use. In fact, a recent CDC policy change with regard to community use of cloth masks is also based on high risk for transmission from asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic persons. Big point. I'm gonna read that again. In fact, a recent CDC policy change with regard to community use of cloth masks is also based on high risk of transmission from asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic persons. And we know that dealing with COVID-19 and coronavirus, it's a possibility that you may have it and be asymptomatic. Therefore, we should all act as if we have the virus or the disease. We should move as such because you don't know if you have it or not. Just because you're not showing symptoms does not mean that you're not infected. That's exactly what asymptomatic means. So you feel okay. So you feel like you shouldn't have to wear the mask. But what if you're asymptomatic and you have it, but you just don't know? You see what I'm saying? So this is why we should all wear a mask, regardless of how you feel, what you think. This is the only thing that will help. Well, let me not say the only thing, because this wearing a mask should be coupled with other things also, and we'll get into that later in the presentation. Okay. Oh no, did I finish this? According to some studies, 25 to 50% of persons with COVID-19 have mild cases or are asymptomatic and potentially can transmit infections to others. So, in areas of high transmission, mask use is a source of control. Is a source control may prevent spread of infection from persons with asymptomatic, pre-symptomatic, or mild infections. If medical masks are prioritized for healthcare workers, the general public can use cloth masks as an alternative. Okay, second, masks may be used by healthy persons to protect them from acquiring respiratory infections. Some randomized control trials have shown masks to be efficacious in closed community settings, with and without the practice of hand hygiene. Moreover, in a widespread pandemic, differentiating asymptomatic from healthy persons in the community is very difficult. So at high, so at least in high transmission areas, universal face masks should be beneficial. The general public should be educated about mask use because cloth masks may give users a false sense of protection because of their limited protection against acquiring infection. Currently, putting on and taking off cloth masks improves protection. Correctly putting on and taking off cloth masks improves protection. Taking that mask off is a high risk process because pathogens may be present on the outer surface of the mask and may result in self contamination during removal. Not many people talk about that. So, we get into a couple of the myths of the mask. I know many of y'all done heard some of these before. I've heard many of them myself. I hear them all the time on Facebook, on YouTube. So let's check out a couple of them. Right? Hold on 1 second. I don't know why that's doing that. Hold on, let me stop sharing and okay, we back on. Okay, we back on. So yeah, let's get into a couple of the myths. Myth: I'm not sick, so I don't need to wear a mask. We just talked about that, right? Simply put, wearing a cloth mask helps decrease the spread of COVID-19. Research now has shown that a significant number of people with COVID-19 lack symptoms. These people do not know they are transmitting the virus to others when they talk, sneeze, cough, or even raise their voice, which includes singing or shouting. Wearing a mask helps to lower the transmission of respiratory droplets to other people around you. You should wear a mask to protect others, and they should wear a mask to protect you. Simply put, it's about caring for your fellow man. We all in this together. There's another myth. Wearing a cloth mask does not prevent you from getting COVID-19. A cloth mask is worn to help protect others in case you have the virus. Countries that required face masks, testing, isolation, and social distancing early in the pandemic seem to have had some success slowing the disease's spread. Common sense also suggests that some protection is better than none. Cloth masks reduce the number of respiratory droplets a person releases into the air when talking, sneezing, or coughing. The overall number of droplets in the air is reduced when more people wear masks, and this reduces the risk of being exposed to COVID-19. Another myth: wearing a mask will increase the amount of carbon dioxide I breathe and will make me sick. I've heard this a lot of times. For many years, healthcare providers have worn masks for extended periods of time with no adverse health reactions. The CDC recommends wearing cloth masks while in public, and this option is very breathable. There is no risk of hypoxia, which is lower oxygen levels in healthy adults. Carbon dioxide will freely diffuse through your mask as you breathe. If you feel uncomfortable in your mask, try to limit your talking and breathing through your nose. And breathe through your nose, excuse me. That will reduce the humidity level in your mask. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, try to talk less and breathe through your nose. But that humidity is actually a good thing. Okay, let's move on. Another myth. If I'm wearing a mask, I don't need to practice social distancing, right? Wearing a mask is one step in slowing down the spread of COVID-19. Remember, I told you wearing a mask should be coupled, with a few other things. In addition to wearing a mask, everyone should continue to practice recommended behaviors to such as keeping your physical distance 6 feet or about 2 arms length apart from each other, right? Limit in-person meetings. So whenever you can avoid going out, do that. Wash your hands with soap often. Stay at home if you do not feel well. I mean, I know like it's a lot of us go to work or send our children to school when they're sick. You know, you got to do what you got to do sometimes, but I would say this is not the time. This is not the time. You're just hurting yourself and you're hurting others even more. If we want to slow down the spread of this, if we want to get control of this, we got to think smart. If you know that COVID-19 causes the common cold symptoms, and you know you have some of those symptoms, instead of going to work that day, you need to call off. Get you a COVID test and see what's going on. Because if you might not have it, but you potentially may have it. And if you do, you're going out there and you're a potential risk to everybody else that you encounter. So let's be responsible. Get a test if you have COVID-19 symptoms. Call your local healthcare provider to schedule a test. Self-isolate if you have been around someone who is sick or tested positive. All right, what is social distancing? Social distancing. The practice of social distancing means staying at home, staying away from others as much as possible to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. The practice of social distancing encourages the use of such things as online video, phone communication instead of in-person contact. As communities reopen and people are more often in public, the term physical distancing instead of social distancing is being used to reinforce the need to stay at least 6 feet away from others, as well as wearing face masks. Historically, social distancing was also used interchangeably to indicate physical distancing, which is defined below. Excuse me. However, social distancing is a strategy distinct from physical distancing behavior. So it's a difference between the two. Social distancing means staying away from other people as much as possible, right? Staying home as much as possible. Whenever you don't have to go out and go somewhere, don't go. If you can get that, if you can get that, if you can get that book online, if you can get that so and so online, then do that rather than going to the store and going to get it. I know it's a lot of times for buying certain things, it's more convenient if you go in person to actually see the product. But in these times, if you can get it online, do that. If you can call a person rather than pulling up on them, do that because it's helping. Right? What is physical distancing? Wear a mask, wear a face mask or covering when you are not in your home or and whenever you are around people who are not members of your household. Maintain at least 6 feet of distance between yourself and others. Avoid crowded places, particularly indoors, and events that are likely to draw crowds. Yeah, you wanna really avoid large crowds in indoors or in enclosed areas or spaces. Other examples of social and physical distancing to avoid, other examples of social and physical distancing to avoid larger crowds or crowded spaces are working from home instead of at the office, closing schools or switching to online classes, visiting loved ones by electronic devices instead of in person, canceling or postponing conferences or large meetings. All right, hold on, let me switch this screen. Yeah, that's better. A horrifying slow motion video shows the incredible trajectory of a sneeze that may be carrying the coronavirus up to 27 feet away. U.S. scientists filmed a clip of a healthy person during a violent exhalation, slowed down from 25 seconds to a minute and a half. They found that viral droplets expelled in coughs and sneezes can travel in moist, warm atmosphere at speeds of between 33 to 100 feet per second. This creates an infectious and turbulent gas cloud capable of reaching somewhere between 23 to 27 feet, 7 meters to 8 meters away. A moist and warm atmosphere within a turbulent gas cloud allows the contained droplets to evade evaporation for much longer than usual. The study suggests the UK government's coronavirus social distancing limit, 2 meters or 6.5 feet, is at least 4 times too short for sneezing, if sneezing is taken into account. So when you're sneezing, these droplets, these respiratory droplets are going way farther than 6 feet. But if you have your face mask on, coupled with that physical distancing of 6 feet, you should be protected. You should be protected. These sneeze trajectories go up to 27 feet, and we're telling each other to stay 6 feet apart. This is where the mask comes in at. So you want to couple these rules together, not just one on its own. You can't just wear a mask and still be up in somebody's face. You can't just physical distance 6 feet without a mask. Nobody's wearing a mask. Like, that's not going to work. We have to couple these rules together to see some type of progress. Writing in the Journal of American Medical Association, Professor Barabor, however you say his name, says today's social distancing measures are based on outdated models. This is because they do not account for the possibility of a hot, moist gas cloud, which is capable of sustaining viral droplets for longer distances. Although such social distancing strategies are critical in the current time of pandemic, it may seem surprising that the current understanding of the roots of host to host transmission and respiratory infectious diseases are predicated on a model of disease transmission developed in the 1930s. That by model by modern standards seems overly simplified, she says. Implementing public health recommendations based on these older models may limit the effectiveness of the proposed interventions. Okay, so I have a visual here of this trajectory that we were just speaking on. Look at that. When you sneeze, whether you see it or not, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. That's why I've always had a pet peeve of people coughing or sneezing and not covering their mouth. Because just because you don't see these germs, these droplets, and everything else that you're expelling, when you do that, they're there. They are definitely there. And I don't want your germs. And I don't want to give you my germs. You feel me? So it's definitely past that now. Now your germs and my germs can definitely kill. These distances are based on estimates of rains that have not considered the possible presence of a high momentum cloud carrying the droplets long distances. So even within that 7 to 8 meters that they're showing, it is possible for that cloud to be carried way further than that. This is why you got to wear a mask. I don't trust most people don't cover their mouth when they sneeze and cough anyway. Droplets that settle along the trajectory of a sneeze can contaminate surfaces, while the rest remain trapped and clustered in the moving cloud. Eventually, the turbulent gas cloud loses momentum and the remaining droplets within the cloud evaporate. And then when that cloud evaporates, when those respiratory droplets evaporate, you still have the virus in the air. You still have those aerosols. Hand wash. I know, we already know to wash our hands, but do we know how to wash our hands properly? Do we know how to wash our hands effectively? Some of us do, some of us don't. So for the ones that don't, it's cool. We about to get into it. How germs spread. Washing hands. Oh, my bad. Washing hands can keep you healthy and prevent the spread of respiratory and diarrheal infections from one person to the next. Germs can spread from other people or surfaces when you touch your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. And we do that a lot. Touch our face a lot um, with unwashed hands. It's just a natural human reaction. So we all do it. Prepare or eat food and drinks with unwashed hands. See, when I'm growing up, that's a no-no. I couldn't even come in my mama's kitchen touching nothing without washing my hands. So I'm grateful that she prepared me for those type of hygienic measures. Uh, Touch a contaminated surface or object. Blow your nose, cough, or sneeze into your hands, and then touch other people's hands or common objects. Just nasty. Key times to wash hands. You can help yourself and your loved ones stay healthy by washing your hands often, especially during these key times when you are likely to get and spread germs. So there's a couple of key times to wash your hands: before, during, and after preparing food. Big key. Before eating food, before and after caring for someone at home who is sick with vomiting or diarrhea, before and after treating a cut or wound, after using the toilet, After changing diapers or cleaning up a child who has used the toilet. After blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing. After touching an animal, animal feed, or animal waste. Hopefully none of y'all are touching no animal waste. After handling pet food or pet treats. After touching garbage. During the COVID-19 pandemic, you should also clean hands after you have been in a public place and touched an item or surface that may be frequently touched by other people, such as door handles, tables, gas pumps, shopping carts, electronic cashier or registers, screens, before touching your eyes, nose, mouth, because that's how germs enter our bodies. And again, we do that a lot. It's just human nature. But if you can help it, try to remember not to touch your face with unwashed hands. Follow 5 steps to wash your hands the right way. Washing your hands is easy and is one of the most effective ways to prevent the spread of germs. Clean hands can stop germs from spreading from one person to another and throughout an entire community, from your home and workplace to childcare facilities and hospitals. Follow these 5 steps every time. Wet your hands with clean, running, warm or cold. I say cold because if you get the water too hot, you're less likely to be able to hold your hands under the water to wash your hands properly, right? So turn off the tap after you wet your hands, then apply the soap. Then you want to lather your hands by rubbing them together with soap. The lather is a key point. Make sure when you wash your hands, you get that lather. That's a key point. That's breaking down the proteins of these different viruses and so forth. Lather the backs of your hands between your fingers and under your nails. Scrub your hands for at least 20 seconds. Near your time, hum the happy birthday song from beginning to end 2 times. Rinse your hands well under clean running water. And you want to be able to rinse your hands for at least 15 to 20 seconds as well. You wash and lather your hands for at least 20 seconds. I say 30 seconds to be safe. And you want to rinse your hands for about 15 to 20 seconds. Dry your hands using a clean towel or air dry them. I would personally say it's better to use a clean towel so you can thoroughly dry your hands. With those air dryers, the air might stop blowing before your hands get dry. And you walk out with your hands damp, damp hands, you're more likely to uh, to contaminate your hands with germs with those damp hands. The drier your hands, the better. Use hand sanitizer when you can't use soap and water. Washing hands with soap and water is the best way to get rid of germs in most situations. If soap and water are not readily available, though, you can use alcohol-based hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol. You can tell if the hand sanitizer contains 60% alcohol by looking at the product label. Sanitizers can quickly reduce the number of germs on the hands in many situations. However, hand sanitizers do not get rid of all types of germs. Hand sanitizers may not be effective when hands are visibly dirty or greasy. Like if you see dirt on your hands, hand sanitizer ain't gonna work for that, playboy. You gotta wash your hands soap and water. Hand sanitizer might not remove harmful chemicals from hands like pesticides and heavy metals. So if you've been dealing with that, any pesticides, heavy metals, or any unusual chemicals, you might need to hit up that soap and water. How to use hand sanitizer. Apply the gel product to the palm of one hand. Read the label to learn the correct amount. Rub your hands together. It's usually for 20 seconds. Okay, yeah, I got that in here. Okay, I got that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Rub the gel over all the surfaces of your hands and fingers until your hands are dry. This should take around 20 seconds. Okay, and apparently that was my last slide. These are my sources. You can go check any of them out. I recommend you to check all of them out. They aren't relatively long articles, but it's a lot of good information that's in there. A lot of good information that didn't necessarily need to go into the presentation, but are still helpful for you. So, we put these sources up here not just to say, yo, here it is. We put this up here so y'all can vet it. You can go back and you can receive other information that we might not have presented in the presentation. Um, y'all need to make sure y'all start checking these out because we don't throw this up for our own benefit. You know what I'm saying? These are some good articles. Coronavirus, Americans to wear masks, the debunking of the face mask myths, the social distancing and self quarantining, the trajectory of the sneezes. Like this is all good information, man. So y'all make sure y'all go back and vet these. We don't put these in here for nothing, you know. And that's it for me. Uh, okay, my bad. I didn't see y'all back here.
It's all good.
Yeah, man. That was just a few tips and a little bit of information to hopefully help y'all and your families in this situation, in this dire time that we're going through with COVID-19, coronavirus. You know, we all got to get through this together, and it don't matter what part of the country you're from. It don't matter right now. It don't even matter what part of the world you're from. It don't matter what language you speak. It don't matter what color your skin is. We all are under the same attack. So we have to use universal principles, universal rules to be able to combat this illness, this disease, this virus that we are being exposed to. It ain't no telling when a vaccine will be readily available, properly tested, and deemed safe for public consumption. But until then, the onus and the responsibility is on us as a people, us as an individual. Every time you walk out that door, you have to follow those rules. Even when you go back in the house, you got to follow those rules, even if it's just a washing your hands periodically. You know what I'm saying? Like even with social distancing, you might order something online and it get dropped off at your porch. You need to make sure that that's properly disinfected. Whether intentionally or not, that stuff could be infected too. Yo, I seen somebody, a UPS worker, drop a package off at somebody's front door and spit on the box. You know what I mean? Like, so we all gotta protect ourselves at all times, not just in the public, in the safety of our own homes as well. So, that's why I just wanted to come with a few tips. I know a lot of you may already know these facts and these pieces of information, but some people may not. And for those that may not, you can go back to your family, take this to them, let them see it, and maybe they'll have more of an understanding. You can present these sources, these articles to your family members and let them know, yo, you're supposed to be washing your hands for 20 seconds. yo, you're supposed to be physical distancing even when you have a mask on. Yo, the mask is not to prevent you from getting it, it's to prevent you from spreading it. So hopefully somebody took something away from this. And if so, then I deem I deem this presentation a success. Any of y'all other brothers got anything to say before I play this commercial, volume 2, and get on up out of here?
Yeah, man, I like it. It was a good show, very informative. I learned something on there, so yeah, I hope the audience stay able to learn something too. Good look.
Yeah, man, appreciate it.
Go ahead, Vasa. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was gonna say great show, Sutek. I don't really want to take away from nothing you did. I'm here to support my brother. But great show, and yeah, we need awareness towards that. I don't want to go into the whole diatribe of how I used to paint and how I got firsthand experience of how you may not see a particle until after it's entered your body via seeing all those paint particles in the air, well, coming out of my lungs. So, yeah, I don't think people really get, how this stuff breaks down and how well a lot of those filters are used. Well before this virus, they was creating systems like that to block these things out. So they do have that out there to help protect you. So bringing, a public service announcement like this, Sutek, yeah, it needs to be done. With this still going on, we still need to make those reminders. What's the saying? The greatest teachers are the ones who teach the same lesson a million times. So,
Mm-hmm.
but great bill, great bill.
Yep, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, it's irresponsible for people to just move and think that just because you don't agree with so much noise being made right now, and there's a science to everything. You know what I'm saying? So you just want to move because you ain't trying to hear what everybody trying to say, or because you healthy, you ain't got sick, or people that's done got sick and got better. Look here, this whole show right here is just another constant reminder, and we need more of us doing this. This is a crucial show today. Like, I don't, pretty much the people that rock with us know that it's important to be scientifically literate, and it's important for blacks to be pushing this information because we still got to be smart. Um, with that said, I'm gonna go back and check it out again because it's just notes that you just take, and to make sure that you up on your game, check the references and see, get to some of these websites like Brother Sutek was saying, instead of just taking our word for it, because we ain't up here just to make ourselves feel good. So, yeah, with that said, love y'all family, and we see what we get to the next time.
Yeah, man, facts. Yeah, it's almost like even with the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, like you see the same exact stuff going on. You see the mask being worn or being mandated to be worn. You see people rejecting it and turn it into a political issue. The same exact thing that we see today. Like that's why they tell you to study history because a lot of times it comes back around full circle, and that's exactly what happened with this situation. It's exactly what happened with this situation. You know what I mean? Yeah, you got people. It's like I associated that anti-mask movement of today with Trump. It didn't start becoming big and turn into a political issue until I seen Trump say something about it, and then it just went crazy from there. And we got our own people being a part of this foolishness. If other communities of people, if other groups of people choose to be scientifically illiterate and scientifically ignorant, let them do that. we have enough out here. We got it hard enough, bro. We fighting to survive just being black. We don't need to be trying to fight no coronavirus. You know what I mean? Like we got it hard enough. We don't need to be trying to combat that with no protection. You're not gonna win. You're not gonna beat these diseases. You're definitely not gonna beat no new disease. You're definitely not gonna beat no new virus. Oh, it's ridiculous, man. Yeah, man. But I appreciate y'all, man. I appreciate everybody for coming through. I don't know if we will be going live again later on Facebook. I'm not sure. It just depends on the rest of the brothers, Kofi, Sean. Like I ain't heard nothing from nobody about that yet, so I don't want to make that concrete. But you know, if not, maybe we'll end up going live on Niger Valley Civilization. Make sure y'all subscribe to Niger Valley Civilization. But if neither, then we will make sure to catch y'all next week. We out of here. Peace.